Redcoats in America by Barbara Brooks Simons. Table of Contents. Introduction, page 3. Chapter 1, A British Soldier's Life, page 4. Chapter 2, At War in America, page 9. Chapter 3, Fighting for King George, page 12. Conclusion, page 14. Introduction. In the late 1700s, America was a British colony ruled by the King of England. He sent British soldiers to America to make sure his laws were obeyed. Americans were not happy with British rule. They hated the British soldiers, who were called redcoats for the color of their uniforms. Some wanted the king to repeal taxes they thought were unfair. In time, many wanted independence from Britain. That led to war. British soldiers fought in America for 6 years. Britain had the most powerful army in the world, but the rebellious Americans won anyway. What was life like for these soldiers far from home? The British soldiers were considered the best and most powerful in the world. Chapter 1, A British Soldier's Life. Life for a British soldier wasn't easy. Even the trip across the Atlantic Ocean was long and hard. And once the soldier had arrived, he found a very different land from what he was used to. Britain was usually cool and rainy, while America could be very hot. In most cases, nothing quite fit for the British soldiers. What did a British soldier wear? A soldier's red wool coat was handsome, with colorful lapels and gold or silver trim. The coat gave the British Army its nickname, Redcoats, but it was tight, hot, and itchy. These uniforms proved to be ill-suited for the American climate. What did a British soldier carry? The British soldier's gun was nicknamed Brown Bess. It was heavy and clumsy, weighing 15 pounds. It was over 3 feet long. The soldier also wore a sword. On the march, a soldier carried a lot more. His backpack held food and a tin canteen, and he also carried ammunition, tents, and blankets. A British soldier seldom had a clean shirt to wear. Three-cornered hat. Red coat. Brown Bess rifle with bayonet. Silver buttons and trim. White vest. Knee breeches. Gaiters. Boots. How were soldiers paid? Badly. They got only about 6 to 8 pence a day. That is much less than $1 a day. British coachmen and chimney sweeps earned more than that. Paymasters took a few pence for shoes and gun repairs, and a few more pence went to pay the surgeon or medical officer. Soldiers were left with little money to spend on themselves. How were soldiers treated? Some officers were kind, but discipline was strict. Punishments were harsh, even for small crimes. The most common was flogging, which was being whipped on the back. Nicknames. British soldiers had other nicknames besides redcoats. One was bloody backs. It referred to flogging, not just their red coats. Americans also called them Lobster scoundrels. Who became a soldier? Some men joined the army to see the world. Previously, British soldiers served in India, Africa, and the Caribbean. When war began in America, they went there. It was hard to get enough soldiers for this war. The Army paid bounties, or cash payments, for signing up. They took able-bodied men out of jails. Sometimes they kidnapped men and forced them into the Army. Few wanted to become British soldiers because they were paid and treated so badly. British soldiers marched in line to meet the enemy. American soldiers shot from behind trees and rocks. Many Americans were happy to entertain British officers. What was an officer's life like? Money and class were important in Britain. That was true in the Army, too. Officers often came from upper-class families. They were called Sir This or Lord That. Money gave them many advantages. To be an officer, a man had to buy a commission. Without money, success was hard. Officers led easier lives than their men. They had servants. Baggage carts carried their clothes and household goods. Some had their own coach and horses. In the 1700s, armies did not fight during the winter. The British occupied Philadelphia and other American cities. In winter, officers found temporary homes there. They lived comfortably and ate well. They went to concerts and dances. Chapter 2. At War in America. Who was in a British Army unit? Soldiers, officers, and servants made up an army unit. Most were foot soldiers, but some were on horseback. Each group had a surgeon to treat the sick and wounded. He did not have to be a trained doctor. Musicians also served in the army. They played fifes and drums. Drummers had an important role, beating out special rhythms as signals. These told troops to turn or march. Drum beats. Soldiers had to learn many different drum signals. Drums woke soldiers in the morning. In battle, drum beats told soldiers to turn or march or charge. At 10 at night, they sounded the tap-to for lights out. How did soldiers feel about America? Some people in Britain sympathized with the Americans, but not the soldiers fighting the war. They disliked both America and the people. They even objected to the way Americans spoke. Fighting in America was hard. The British had no local supplies of food because local farmers would not give them any of their crops. Living in the open and not having clean water, many soldiers got sick with fever. Also, they were living in the midst of people who hated them, so they did not receive medicine or aid from the locals. The soldiers lived a harsh life. Women found different ways to make money. Some baked pies or did laundry. What about soldiers' families? War was very different in the 1700s. Some wives and children sailed to America with the British Army. A few were officers' wives. These women lived with the unit. One benefit they received was food and housing. Sometimes women guarded the camp during a battle. A soldier's pay wasn't enough to live on, so their wives had to find jobs. Some cooked food and sold it in camp. Others helped the surgeon as nurses. They also did laundry or worked as maids. Chapter 3. Fighting for King George. Not all soldiers who fought for Britain were British. Some were American, Canadian, or German. What was a loyalist? Many families were split over the issue of which side to fight for. Many Americans did not want independence. On the contrary, they wanted to stay British. They were called Loyalists. Those who did want independence from Britain were called Patriots. They attacked their Loyalist neighbors, burning homes and farms. That scared some Loyalists into silence. Thousands fled to British Canada, while others formed their own army units. Loyalists fought alongside the British Army, and so did soldiers from Canada. Choosing which side to fight for was very hard. Whom did African Americans support? Thousands of African Americans lived in the colonies. Nearly all were slaves. British officials promised freedom to those who joined them. Would American independence prohibit slavery? Most slaves did not think so because many Patriot leaders were slaveholders. So thousands of African Americans joined the British Army and Navy. Whom did American Indians support? Many American Indians feared losing their lands to the colonists, so most chose to fight with the British. Why did Germans fight with the British? It was hard to find enough soldiers in Britain, so King George turned to his German relatives for help. They supplied him with many German soldiers. Americans called the German soldiers Hessians. Conclusion. In 1783, a treaty was signed that ended the Revolution. After the war, many Loyalists moved to Canada or back to England. Most of the British soldiers returned home to England. There, some of them continued to work as soldiers. Others turned to other occupations, such as farming. The soldiers were exhausted, and many were sick and wounded. Although they were defeated, many of them were probably glad that the war was finally over. Great Britain and the new United States of America remained enemies for a while. But in time, the two nations became friends, working to support democracy and freedom. The new nation proudly flew its new flag. Responding. Target vocabulary. Word builder. Which words mean the same as objected? Make a word web around the word objected. Copy this word web and add more words. Write about it. Text to self. Write a paragraph about one thing that you have objected to in your life. Tell why you objected to it. Use some of the words from the word web in your paragraph. Target vocabulary. Advantages. Benefit. Contrary. Midst. Objected. Previously. Prohibit. Rebellious. Repeal. Temporary. Target strategy. Question. Ask questions before you read, as you read, and after you read. Word teaser. Looking for good things in life? Find 2 vocabulary words that promise them.